For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Hello everybody, Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks so much for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on a podcast app. I love how we got the whimsical thescribbleshow.com and other places. It is Grammys weekend, and for an entertainment reporter in music radio, it is the biggest night or biggest weekend of the year. It's like Christmas, but it's showbiz, so there's little heart and caring in it. It's very cutthroat. We are going to be talking with famed recording artist John Tesh. So we're sort of triple dipping on this one, okay? You know, the show Entertainment Tonight just celebrated its 10,000th episode earlier this month. John was one of the first hosts of it, right? Remember, he was teamed up with Mary Hart for, I think, about 10 years. So we're going to talk with John about entertainment reporting, because we can bond on this. I've been doing red carpets and things and, for 14 years or so. So we're going to get John's insight from the 80s and 90s, my insight and input from, the 2000s-ish, and then we'll also segue into music recording, because that obviously has changed since John first got into recording, right? I mean, computers nowadays are sort of doing everything, and John has a new book and a TV special coming out, so he's going to be joining us basically for the entire episode this week. So looking forward to having him chat with us. Now, let's talk about the Grammys, because that is happening Sunday night. I will be live tweeting, by the way, at Jeremy D. Bradley. This is one of those things where it's sort of like the playoffs for an entertainment reporter, right? January to February, mid-February is that we get no weekends off. Every other weekend is something. But music these days, it's kind of interesting, because back when you'd have your legendary artists that would get the nominations, right? And then you sort of just expected, all right, they're going to win because of who they are. Well, now, quite honestly, I mean, I haven't heard of most of the artists and songs, and I host a syndicated top 40 music show. But that's the thing, though, is that it's not necessarily just kind of pop music anymore, right? The genres sort of blend and merge and coexist, maybe is the better way of saying it. So the Grammys, it's always interesting, because so-and-so can be nominated for a rap song or hip hop song or pop song, whatever it is, and you just wouldn't expect it to be in that category. But there aren't those set roadways. There's not that, okay, well, your country, your pop, your rap, your this, your that. There's that blend now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and everybody's looking forward to Demi Lovato returning to the stage, right? That's something that, since she had her OD, which that was 2018 now, I guess. So a year and a half ago. She hasn't really done anything professionally on stage that we've seen. She was just recently on an episode of Will and Grace, right? She's going to be Will's surrogate. But to hear that she's going to be at the Grammys and then the following weekend performing the national anthem at the Super Bowl, I mean, that's coming back with a vengeance. So good on her. So it'll be interesting. Of course, all eyes will be on Demi Lovato. Aerosmith having a bit of drama with former drummer Joey Kramer, who had an injury last year and was basically sort of kicked out of the group and then tried to return. The band is going back and forth in court because Joey apparently tried to show up at a band rehearsal for the Grammys last week and was turned away by security. So they've gone to court. Now, the judge did not rule in Joey Kramer's favor. The judge ended up saying, given that Kramer has not played with the band in 6 months and the dearth of available rehearsal time before the upcoming performances, Kramer has not shown a realistic alternative course of action sufficient to protect the band's business interests. For his part, Kramer said the band waited until January 15th to tell me that they weren't letting me play at the award ceremonies this week. I can hold my head high knowing that I did the right thing to fight for my right to celebrate the band's success that I have dedicated the better part of my life to helping build. Now, Kramer said that he is allowed to pose with the guys for photo ops, but not actually perform. That's not going to be any awkwardness there, is it? Jeez. So anyway, so not a happy ending for Joey Kramer of Aerosmith, but it'll be interesting to see. I think that's what people tune in for on the Grammys, though, is the performances. So it ends up just being concert with awards intertwined with. It's just like, you know what, shut up, get to the next song. That's what we want to see. We want to see the performances. So, and I'm going to shut up to take a break, and we're going to come back with John Tesh here on the Scribble.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
We're in the middle of award show season, so I thought we should check in with one of the veterans. Basically started this whole entertainment reporting thing, and he's a music legend himself. John Tesh, formerly from Entertainment Tonight, is joining us now. Hi, John.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Great. I love being a veteran of something. Anyway.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. A lot has changed for everything. For the industry, for you, since ET started. It just celebrated its milestone 10,000th episode. You were on the show in the 80s and 90s. Let's talk about how entertainment reporting has evolved. I mean, celebs weren't on Instagram 24/7. Red carpet broadcasts weren't really a thing. I don't even know that we considered it award show season. I mean, am I right on all that?
You're right on all of it. Yeah, you get an A+ on your multiple choice there because when I joined, in fact, it's funny, I just finished writing about this. I just finished my memoir, which is sort of the highlights of my crazy life. And it was, when you go back in your life and you connect the dots, and you're like, wow, how did that happen? I was actually, I was a newscaster for WCBS, a bunch of other local stations, and I lived in Europe for 6-7 years, doing all the Olympic sports. And somebody at Paramount found a tape of mine anchoring the news when I was in Nashville with Pat Sajak and Oprah Winfrey. And they said, hey, we're looking for a newsyear approach for Entertainment Tonight. Would you want to audition? I didn't know what it was because it was, I guess there were a lot of people who were watching the show, but it was sort of like closet watchers. Nobody wanted to admit that they were watching a half hour of entertainment news back in 1985. And when I finally Betamaxed it and watched the show, I was like, whoa, because it was really cutting-edge graphics back then, right? Mm-hmm. And there was music, and I think the only thing that was really close to it was something like, Two on the Town, one of those syndicated shows. And syndication wasn't a big deal anyway because nobody in the local stations had giant satellite dishes. So anyway, long story short, when I first got there and was doing it, I went from, nobody knowing who I was because I'm doing downhill skiing to 23 million people a night watching that show. And because there was no, cable and there was no, and the nightly news wasn't covering Michael Jackson and all that, the only place you could see a trailer, for example, a movie trailer, was either in the movie theater or on Entertainment Tonight. So you had every publicist and everything just banging on the doors of ET, and there was no Access Hollywood, no Extra, no TMZ, and so it was was a calmer, gentler time. You know what I mean? Where we were sort of in partnership with the celebrities. We weren't hiding out in the bushes or anything. And now all hell is broken loose. You know what I mean?
Well, even just award shows, because, Joan Rivers is the one who really made the red carpet famous. Let's be honest and give credit there. But the red carpet broadcasts weren't really a thing back then.
No, and certainly that's gotten mean, too, where people, these crazy reviewers will get out there who don't have any credentials at all, get out there and they'll start talking about, oh my gosh, what was she thinking? It's become, that's why I don't watch anymore. I have a lot of friends that are still at ET, but what's happened is I think it's because of the competition, and because the entertainment news has become a commodity, right, which we knew was going to happen once the internet blew up. It's become mean, and back in the day on the red carpet, and the red carpet's still pretty cool, right? But I think it was Joan who started, to your point, who started asking about people's dresses and who are you wearing, that whole thing. But yeah, there wasn't any. I don't remember there being any award season. There was the Grammys and the Oscars and the Emmys, and that was. I think these other things existed, but we never covered them.
And even covering a red carpet has changed, right? I've only been doing this about 14 years, but I didn't have to do selfies and live tweeting and all that other stuff now. So, yeah, that's social media, that's the whole blog world. Everything has really changed, even just in terms of media and broadcast.
It has, and I think there are a lot of Robert De Niro type folks who are eschewing that lure and just saying, I'm just going to do my job, put my head down, let somebody else do this.
Yeah.
But I know from being I do a radio show that's on about 350 stations. And used to be on a lot of different television shows, and if I release a book or an album now, whatever, the first question the publicist gets is what's his social media footprint? How many people are with him on Facebook or Instagram or the rest of that? Because there are these networks are counting on the partnership with the talent to alert people that they're going to be on the show, and that increases ratings, and of course that increases the price they can get for advertisements. Right.
Well, and then so to that point, I think you probably also encountered this years ago, where the first question you were asked is, "What markets are you in?" Right? It used to be about markets. Now it's about social media numbers.
Yeah, for sure. And now, but back in the day, everybody, for ratings anyway, Nielsen ratings, everybody's familiar with that name, is there were, people kept diaries, and they wrote down, or ostensibly wrote down what they were watching, and they used these diaries, they used that sampling to decide what the ratings were going to be. Now they have, at least for radio anyway, there's portable people meters, PPM, where people wear these pager-like to get paid to wear these pager-type devices, and if they walk into a Starbucks and there's a Sting song playing there on whatever local radio station it is, because of the technology, that pager knows exactly what that person is listening to. So it's really getting crazy as far as technology goes for measuring audiences.
Let's shift gears, though, keeping on with technology and the recording industry. You've been doing music for so long. That itself has changed in terms of computer involvement nowadays.
As far as creating music, yeah, for sure. And again, this not to put a shameless plug in here, but this book that I just finished called Relentless. It's there's a story in there about how I was composing music for the Tour de France and also for Iron Man and a bunch of other big anthology events, and we were they back in 1982, they shoved us in a truck in France, and we covered this race for 4 weekends, and we had to make 2 hours of documentary out of that. And I had a Mac SE and a couple of giant synthesizers in this stand, and I was scoring the thing. And now, I'm sitting here in my studio now as I'm talking to you, and I've got a laptop, I've got a MacBook with the entire entire orchestra that Hans Zimmer uses, as a plug-in. I mean, and I have a little plastic keyboard that I can take with me on the airplane. So, yeah, that's just an example of what you can do now. And I mean, it is still garbage in, garbage out. You have to really know what you're doing. But that's how a lot of music is written. I mean, even the most recognizable song I ever wrote, which was a basketball theme, was written on an answering machine. I called it in from Europe. The problem with the music industry now, right, is that the artists are just getting killed with it's getting better with the streaming and the digital rights and things like that. But back in the day, I mean, if you had a hit record, you were selling hundreds, millions of CDs, and so it was an easier way to make a living. Now, most artists, myself included, make a better living touring.
What are your thoughts, though, on the whole fast-paced, almost like ADD society that we have, where you have this song that's a hit overnight, and then again, it's thanks to social media, YouTube, what have you, that people are just putting out music for the sake of putting out music. I don't know that necessarily the heart is still in it.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a song way back when James Ingram, somebody said, hey, because I was trying to get my music on the radio, and somebody said, hey, you should partner with somebody who's a great singer. And so, why don't you call James Ingram? So I'm not calling James Ingram. So anyway, I called James Ingram. I said, would you come over and write a song with me? And he goes, yeah, man. So he comes over to my house, right? Like James Ingram is in my house now. And so he says, what do you want to do? And I told him, I want a hit song. I want to do this. He goes, no, man. Where's your heart? This is just what you're talking about. And I said, I've always wanted to write a wedding song. And he goes, well, let's do that. And so we wrote this song with another friend of mine, Carter Cathcart, called Give Me Forever I Do. And because the song had heart, because it had purpose, it was, and there were no loops in it because those didn't exist. It became a number one song on the radio. But yeah, there's a lot of, I know this to be true because I have all of these devices at my fingertips too. But you can drag, you don't have to be a musician, you can drag loops in. You can drag sounds in, and you can use Ableton Live like the DJs do, and you can create a song, a hit song, that way. I will say that YouTube, though, has really, I think it's improved the music world because there are so many artists that would never get discovered because the record companies. I mean, look at Macklemore, right? I mean, so many record companies would stand in your way, but now you can get discovered on YouTube. And look at the guys, the piano guys is another example. They never had a prior to a couple of years ago, no PBS special, no record company really, and they just blew up by being popular and having 20, 30 million views on YouTube. So that's really pretty cool.
And we should tell people that John Tesh isn't even really on the phone right now. This is a computer talking to us. So I mean that's.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's talk about what you have on the go. You've touched on the book Relentless, and I know you have a TV special coming up as well. So let's start with the book Relentless. That sounds like an intense title, but I think it is a very entrepreneurial title as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is definitely it's intense, and the rest of the story is, the rest of the title is unleashing a life. It's even worse, unleashing a life of persistence, grit, and faith. The short story is I wanted to be a musician my whole life, and my father wanted me to follow in his footsteps, which was to my dad made underwear for Hanes. He was the vice president of the underwear division at Hanes. So he sent me to college, insisted I go to college to study textile chemistry, and I took about 2.5 years of that. I lost my mind and took a radio television course and loved it, and tried to switch majors, and the university, one of the guys at the university wouldn't let me. So of course, I, on advice from one of my fraternity brothers, I forged his name onto the drop ad card, and I got caught, and I obviously broke the honor code. I got thrown out, suspended from NC State, and then my parents, who were top, Baptist North Carolina folks, they threw me out of the house, and so I ended up in a tent in a park in Raleigh, North Carolina, for about 5-6 months, pumping gas and breaking concrete with a shovel for a construction crew, and that made a man out of me. But 3 years after that, I was anchoring the news in New York City at WCBS, and so the story of that journey and the persistence and grit of burning your ships illustrated through the rest of the book is my cancer journey, where I was diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2015, and so that journey that included not only surgery and the usual chemical treatments and things, but also something called divine healing, where we ended up standing on certain scriptures in the Bible, and I ended up it's an amazing story, getting supernaturally healed. But the book is really designed to, if you read the book, you'll say, wow, this guy's nuts, I'm never doing that. But there's a lot, I risked a lot in my life because I was a very average person, and realized that if I didn't jump out of an airplane about every 6 months and build my parachute on the way down, I probably wasn't going to make anything out of myself.
When you write a story of your life like that, do you already have a bunch of the chapters mapped out, and then as you're going through such and such chapter, that prompts another memory or story from back in the day? How did you go about writing it?
It's really a great question. For me, it ended up being almost like backwards and forwards at the same time, where I was the idea for the memoir started when I ended up being diagnosed with cancer, and I was still touring, right? Still doing 30 shows. I would have chemo, then I'd take 2 days off, and I'd be back out, touring and also doing the radio show at the same time. So when I was on stage, I started talking about my life and started talking about my challenges and things like that. And so it over like a 2 or 3 year period, all of a sudden I was playing less music. I was still playing 4 or 5 songs, but it used to be 15, and I was telling a story about my youth, things like that. And we were seeing the people reacting to it. Then I had an artist that I worked with, an Adobe After Effects video artist, and we started illustrating it. And I started bringing in video and things from when I was writing music for some of these big sporting events and things. And so it ended up being really a sort of VH1 storytellers type thing, and we called it Songs and Stories from the Grand Piano, which is what this PBS thing is. And right about that time, HarperCollins came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like for you to write your memoir. What do you think?" And you get, you get flattered, right? It's like, oh yeah, let me do that. And then you realize that and they tried to use a ghostwriter, which just didn't work because it wasn't in my voice. So I said, well, I'm gonna do this myself. And they said, really? And I said, yeah. So 2.5 years later, and 85,000 words later, I finished the thing. But it's the hardest thing I've ever done, because you have to pick. You can't just say, I was born a poor. You have to really pick places in your life that you think might be interesting to people. So to your, it's a long way of answering your question, but a memoir is basically just highlights of your life and lowlights, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how I started. I had a whiteboard, and I would come up with ideas, and then I called a lot of my friends. John Stossel, who I worked with, Maris Vieira, I worked with them in New York City, and some producers from. I called an old uncle of mine and some producers. Just said, what was I thinking when I was doing this? Because you tend to write the chapters in your head, and maybe even write the outcome different than it actually happened. Make yourself look better. So I got the real story from a lot of people who were close to me.
You touch on the TV special, again, John Tesh, Songs and Stories from the Grand Piano. This is my investigative reporting. I'm assuming you're telling stories and doing songs at the piano.
That's about it. It's a real high concept show. Yeah. But difficult for me because I'm not used to talking for 12 minutes at a time or something like that. So I am one of those guys. One of my favorite books is by Austin Kleon. It's called Steal Like an Artist, and it's really when I read that book, I'm like, well, I've been doing this for years, sort of instinctively, and that is you find people who are at the top of their craft, whatever it is, whether it's Rick Wakeman as a keyboard player from Yes, or Sergei Rachmaninoff, a pianist, or it's Jerry Seinfeld, or I don't know, Jim Gaffigan, or something like that, for somebody who's a comedian, and you study those guys, you study them, and you'll never get, I never did, obviously, but you never get to where they are, but you look at their process, right? And as a concert pianist and actually a trumpet player who was trained by a teacher from Juilliard, my whole life was process, and so I understand the hours and hours and hours of practice and rehearsal and and recording and all the rest of that stuff. And so I applied that process to becoming, I guess, a little bit of a comedian or a presenter, as well as a musical performer. And I think it turned out well. But it's that when you look at the work, when you look at Seinfeld or you look at Chris Rock, you say, "Wow, those guys are so funny," or they just sort of show up on stage. No, I mean it's hundreds of concerts and writing on legal pads and everything. It really does take that much to just sort of get up on stage and even do 3 or 4 minutes. I realized that quickly.
So are we breaking news here? Are you going on a comedy tour? Are you announcing it on our show, John?
No. There are people who laugh at some of the stuff that I do on stage, right? And you'll see that in the PBS special. But they're laughing at my predicament mostly as a kid growing up with braces and headgear and the goofy ways that I've recorded some of my songs and working with Howie Mandel on a cartoon show. So it's not like observational comedy where it's like, what? Why is it that the toilet paper always comes in from the left? It's not that at all. It's my life. My life is pretty funny at times.
And he's an impersonator, ladies and gentlemen. This is getting good.
Yeah, really bad. I can't. I've always wanted to do Walken, but I can't do it. I just can't. I can't think of the guy who always does Walken. He's so good.
So I got to ask you then, just to wrap this all up. I mean, where do you find the energy to keep doing all these projects and take on more and more and more?
I'm in love with the process, and I know I've overused that word, but I am. I'm just in love with the process, and it's. I also understand suffering, and Jordan Peterson and the great clinical psychologist, and also M. Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled. They understand, and they've written about, and they've studied the fact that suffering is a part of what happens on this earth, and so once you embrace that, once you understand it, you can transcend it, and then you build a process to stay right above it, right? And once you've had chemotherapy and androgen deprivation therapy at the same time, you really do understand what suffering is, and then you'll read, Viktor Frankl's book, the Holocaust survivor's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and realize I really didn't suffer anything. But listen, this morning at 4:45, I was in the gym and I was pushing weights and doing deadlifts and just suffering through, an hour and 15 minutes of not with a trainer, but just me and these weights, and I do it every day. And that process is really what encourages me to keep going. I will never retire, and I just enjoy. I don't really ever think of the prize. Sometimes there is a prize, sometimes there's not. But if you fall in love with the process, then things really do fall in place for you.
Well, lots of great stories to tell. So it's the book, it's the TV special, it's the radio show. Where can people keep up to date with everything? I guess your website has all the information.
Yeah, Tesh.com is our website. I think our Facebook page has become like a TV network. I mean, we have so many people who hang with us there at Facebook.com/John Tesh.
All right. Well, we're going to be tuning in, following, subscribing, liking, retweeting. Did I get all of them? I think that's all right. I can't keep it straight.
I'm married to Connie Seliga, one of the most beautiful women in the world. And people still can't figure out how I pulled that off, but I'm not telling anybody. But anyway, we've been to dozens of red carpets over the years, and especially the Grammys. I've been up for a couple of Grammys, and you walk on the red carpet, right? And there's like dozens and dozens of photographers there. All say John Connie, John Connie, John Connie, and so you're standing there, you're trying to smile, and flashbulbs are going off, and then inevitably, after about 12 or 13 seconds of that, you'll see all the photographers go, John, and they'll make a motion for me to move out of the frame so they can have Connie by themselves. That's my experience with the red carpet. There you go.
Well, it's a compliment and it's not, I guess, at the same time.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, she's going home with me, so that's all I'm thinking.
All right, well, we're going to be watching the TV special. We're going to be reading the book, and we'll be following on Facebook. John Tesh, thanks so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
Hey, thanks for your time. This is great therapy. Appreciate it.
I'll bill you for it, John.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really, listen, you can pay $400 an hour out here in Los Angeles, so, I'm in. Let me know.
Sounds good. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Out of time. Bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a Speak Free media presentation.
If you want some real heat